For viewers across Africa and the rest of the world, this is NC Continental Prime. I am Gbenga, Aborowa. We begin in East Africa, where Kenyan victims of the 1998 United States Embassy bombing in Nairobi on Monday renewed calls for compensation from Washington. The call comes as the East African nation marked 25 years since its deadliest terror attack. A powerful blast hit the U.S. Embassy in downtown Nairobi on the 7th of August 1998, killing 213 people and injuring over 5,000, most of them pedestrian or office workers in the adjacent buildings. Minutes later, another explosion rocked the U.S. mission in Dar es Salaam in neighboring Tanzania. The twin bombings claimed by Al-Qaeda killed a total of 224 people and went on to shape how a generation thinks about personal security.
The consortium believes that the efforts will bring to the attention of the world the great injustice and discriminatory practice by the United States government, which only compensated its own citizens, employees, and third-party contractors who were affected by the bombing.
It has not been easy, but with God's grace, we are here. 25 years. We have not been compensated, but we are seeking for compensation, of which money cannot compensate your health, cannot compensate the injuries, but it can ease your life. That's what we are looking for.
For the survivors, it's a day to thank God that indeed you survived and lived to tell the tale. It is also a day to ask, has justice been done to the survivors and to the families of the departed? 25 years on, still waiting for compensation. I'm aware.
Joining me live from Nairobi, Kenya, as a policy analyst to unpack all of this, I'm joined by Arnold Maliba. Good evening to you, Arnold, and thanks for joining us on NC Continental Prime.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Now, Arnold, how has the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombing in Nairobi influenced Kenya's approach to counterterrorism and national security strategies over the past 25 years?
I think the 1998 bombing breaks Kenya into two, before 1998 and after 1998, because prior to that, this type of crime or terrorist acts were only things Kenyans would read in news, and it didn't appear to actually that it would come so close home. So then after 1998, the Kenya after 1998 is so much like the world after the
9/11
World Trade bombing for 9/11, because for us in Kenya, a lot of what then we started meeting outside of the world after 9/11 are things that we actually started experiencing after 1998, because it was quite a rare type of occurrence. A lot of Kenyans did not even expect that what would be happening in faraway lands would actually bring consequences back at home in a way that was so fatal. And the challenge has been that thereafter, the war on terror and terrorist practices became quite commonplace in the region. Now we moved away from Al-Qaeda. Over the days now, of course, the word Al-Shabaab is now quite common locally. And now, after that, of course, terrorist acts in East Africa, not just around in Kenya, became quite common now. You hear of the same in Uganda, you are talking about the same in DRC. Today we speak about the same in places where that was not even commonplace, like Mozambique. So for 1998, that is Kenya's 9/11.
Now, Arnold, in what ways did the 1998 embassy bombing impact diplomatic relations between Kenya and the United States? And how have these relations evolved since then, especially in the area of security cooperation?
Well, it did a little bit of deepening the relationships and the partnership around security, but over and above, the primary things were the Americans had their embassy in their CBD, what we call the Central Business District in Nairobi, on a very busy street. Thereafter, they moved it within the UN complex in Nairobi, somewhere called Gigiri. And after that, literally every diplomatic office in Nairobi, and you know Nairobi is quite a diplomatic hub on the eastern shores of Africa. Literally all those diplomatic offices became quite barricaded places where initially walking into an embassy, you will get a beautiful gate, smiling security. But after that, now we started seeing walls coming up, strong gates, blockers, and very funny way of how then people managed their gates. That at the infrastructural level was quite a new thing. It's not something that was common in Nairobi, because until then, Nairobi was considered fairly peaceful, and a place where you would go to bed if you are within a diplomatic compound without necessarily even caring about who is outside there, because no one will come in. Of course, you asked the question on how then Kenya and the US then would proceed on the security front. Way before that, Kenya and the Americans have had a base here for a very long time, somewhere at the coast where even the biggest of American planes can land. So it's not really new. What has only happened is that now there has been cooperation in bringing up newer units. Like, for example, we now have got a special forces unit called the Ranger Strike Force that is entirely what then was America's way of reaching out to us to prepare Kenya for such like eventualities. And a whole regiment, a whole unit, special forces unit, trained and equipped by the Americans.
A lot of security cooperation going on there. Now, Arnold, before I let you go, looking back at the sad event in 1998, it devastated many lives. What initiatives are in place to address the needs of the survivors and families affected by the attack? The Kenyan victims are asking for some type of compensation, and also what sort of assistance has the Kenyan government offered to these victims?
Well, I do not know about other parts of Africa, but in Kenya, people forget so easily. And we have learned to memorialize even very traumatic issues. Like, for example, it's 25 years down the line. What the Americans did was to only pay their own staff, the Americans and contractors who are working there. But you know, I do not know how I would explain this, but the American embassy at that particular time was at a junction, a major junction, where there was a road that was a little bit quite busy. Let me talk about an intersection of 4 roads and a railway station just actually the main railway station in Nairobi then. So by the time that blast went off, the whole road, and that particular stretch is quite a busy one, that whole place had so many people and adjacent buildings. So there are a lot of people who were hurt. But then outside of their staff, Americans and their contractors, they did not compensate any other person. There are a lot of people, of course, over time who've lost sight, others lost hearing, others have gotten all manner of complications, but it's been so difficult to convince the Americans, because again, the number is quite huge, because we're talking about 5,000 people, close to 5,000 people. That in and of itself is quite difficult to verify. It's quite a third, or rather a three-tier level of engagement that for them probably has not been easy, but the number largely is huge. But have we done anything about it other than just having memorials on this particular day and showcasing the partnership between Kenya and the Americans? We've really not done so much. That trauma is so huge, or rather that trauma has actually had a very big impact on a number of people and families. There are people who, for example, I know, no longer go to parks. It's 25 years down the line. They can never go out to a park. And no one has given them support. So there's still so much to do, but it just doesn't speak about that particular broadcast alone. Subsequent attacks in the past, even though of milder impact, have actually happened, and we've not really been good at supporting victims of terror attacks. So this should not just be about this particular attack, but for us in Kenya, for example, we've had
Garissa University, Westgate Mall, and the others.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Arnold Maliba, public policy analyst. Thanks for staying up so late to join us on the program tonight. We do appreciate your contribution and your time.
Yes.
Thank you.